Hello everybody, my name is Pooks, and welcome back to the second installment of the Pooks Cast. Today I'm joined by my good friend, special guest, and co-host, Goose.
Hi, I'm Goose. Really nice to be here, with good friend Pooks.
Glad to have you on the show. So, just like the last episode, we're going to turn over to Discord to answer some of your questions, and we will go from there. So, without further ado, let's get on with it. For our first question today, it comes from Chrono on Discord. They ask, in your opinion, are VR and VR-related technologies becoming more intrusive? Now, I'm going to start this question off. And I'm going to assume by intrusive he means more like invasive with data collection and things like that. Now, I have done some research on Facebook and the way that Facebook operates, because as all of you know, Facebook runs and owns Oculus, and Facebook does do a lot of data collection. They collect data from what games you're using, how much you're spending in each game, but that's generally to be expected. I know Steam collects your data as well, similar to that. I know Oculus and Facebook also collects conversations you have within the text feature when you're talking with friends, I've heard. So, I don't think the software side is becoming too intrusive, because, companies are always going to track the games you're playing and the activity you're doing on their platform. And in terms of hardware, yes, technically, the cameras on the Oculus Rift and such can to get a video image which could be recorded. I don't know what use that would have, because they'd be just seeing what I'm looking at in the real world, so I don't know what uses that has. Once eye tracking becomes more prevalent, I think that might get a little more intrusive, because then they can see what you're looking at. So if they put an ad on your screen and they can track your eyes looking at the ad, then they'll be able to target things more. So that might get a little more intrusive. But personally, I'm not worried about that. As long as I'm having fun, if they want to know my information, personally, I don't care. What are your thoughts on all of this?
I've heard about, things beginning to get more, intrusive with your personal information, trying to grab at everything they can get. And honestly, I think, I don't really care. But at the same time, it shouldn't kind of be happening. These are multi-billion-dollar companies we're talking about. And, they can just get away with anything they want. Because, well, they have a lot of money. They're big, powerful, and they can just run anything, basically. And so, with them being more intrusive with, the conversations you're having, and the cameras and whatnot, that's, I don't know what purpose they really have for that stuff. For me, as a PSVR user, I never really get any of that stuff, because all I just get is the, gameplay. That's it. I don't really suspect anything's happening. No one's, spying on me or anything. I don't really care. I'm not the prettiest faced to see, but hey, whatever you want. And, okay, so to finish this off, I think things might be getting more intrusive, but I don't really believe that we're at that level just yet.
Yeah, I definitely think things are getting a little more intrusive, and I think it's mainly going to be what data can we collect that then we can target ads and games that will make you spend money. I really think that's what's going to happen.
Well, with all things considered, ads, what good are ads if, you're just targeting specific people for specific ads? Okay, yeah, it might benefit them, but to other people it might seem a little annoying sometimes.
Yeah, so it's something that's unavoidable, and it's going to happen no matter what. So that's, I think, our stance on that subject. Moving on, our next question comes from Werewolf. They ask, what system do you think will get more popular over time, VR or AR? Now, VR, of course, stands for virtual reality, and AR stands for augmented reality. Now, not a lot of people know the difference between the two, so let me spell that out real quick. Virtual reality is where you wear a headset or a pair of goggles, and your entire view is immersed in a, virtual reality. Everything you see is virtual, and none of it is the real world that you're actually standing in. Where in comparison, augmented reality, or AR, uses a camera which brings virtual objects or themes into the real world around you. I know AR is used. I know Nintendo had an AR system where with their DS you could point your camera at a card and a figure would pop up and you could play mini games with that figure, but the card would be on your table in real life and the figure would be on top of the card on your table in the real world. I know Snapchat is an app that uses augmented reality where you can place stickers around the world and then move the camera and the stickers interact with each other and it does all funny things like that. So, in my opinion, I think the two are very different and they're both going to get popular in their own ways. Personally, I think that AR is going to get popular really on cell phones because it has the camera and the gyroscope which enable it to do augmented reality really well. You can take a 3D model, map it to a location using the phone's gyroscope, and then you can play around with that model in the real world. While VR is going to get popular for immersive video games. So, in terms of what will get the most popular, I think augmented reality right now is the most popular because all phones basically come equipped with augmented reality technology. But I do think in the long run, VR will get more popular as a genre because it can do so much more. That's just my personal opinion, so I'm going to throw it over to Goose.
To follow up on his opinion, I think that AR would kind of be used, like both of the parties would be improved greatly with time. I would still think that VR is a little on the upside. I would say they're both equal, but VR has the slight advantage. VR completely immerses you. VR, you can touch stuff, you can grab stuff, you can control your whole world. With AR, you can take this world and bring it into our world. We can use special cameras that allow us to touch things. I would think that AR is would turn very quickly into sci-fi holographs and whatnot, and we can actually use that to our advantage. Like, we can use it in, let's say, a workforce, such as like a doctor. We could blueprint out many different organs or whatnot. We can see what it looks like. We can train other doctors. VR, we can take that in here and we can make anything in here. So we would take an organ and make it here so that we can kind of look around just like we do in AR. But to me, I would think AR would be the most advanced and VR would be the most popular.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense, yeah. AR has more real-life practical applications, while VR is more going to be for entertainment and immersion at the moment. I think in the far future, VR and AR will merge, and you'll just be able to seamlessly transition between the two, but that's really far down the road. I don't think we've hit that yet.
That would be really cool, though.
Yeah, it would be. I agree. Our next question comes from Dr. Top Hat. They ask, what would your first thoughts be if Sony announced a PS2 with a PSVR 2 with built-in cameras and finger tracking? Now, as someone who is kind of weary of the PlayStation VR to begin with, I'm going to start and then we'll get the thoughts of someone who owns a PlayStation VR next. So, if I just heard that PSVR was getting a second edition without hearing any of the specifications, I would be a little hesitant, because right now, as a starter VR headset, the PlayStation VR is a great piece of hardware. But in terms of expanding and growing, unfortunately it's very limited. It's almost like the Oculus Quest. They're good for what they were made to do, but they can't really expand on that. The PSVR's controllers are limited and the tracking system is limited, but it does do what it's meant to do very well. Now, if they announced one that was going to be tracked via the headset with hand tracking, one, I would think, wow, they're trying to rip off the Oculus Quest, and two, I would be concerned that things might not be as smooth as, say, a PC-controlled headset or the Oculus Quest. Now, if they completely reworked their processing system and all of their hardware, then yes, it's feasible that a headset run by a console in VR could be very good. I just think, one, it would need to be a lot more heavier in terms of processing power, and two, it would probably have to cost a little bit more because it would have to be doing a lot more work in terms of processing and rendering because you don't have a big, powerful PC backing behind it. Now, those are my biased opinions as a sole PC player. I'm going to throw it over to the PSVR player.
So, straight up, PSVR, okay. It's just not good, not great, not bad either. It's considered as bad to some people, and I understand their view. I think it's okay. Like what he said, it's good for what it's made for. I can do all these things, such as a PC player. Thing is, we are just sitting on a small little box that is running an entire thing, like an entire VR. I can't even run Beat Saber without the entire console of the PC, of the PSVR, lagging. And I'm pretty sure, the PS4 was made for high-tier gaming. It was made for taking punches and, giving the player visual euphoria. And so it was kind of meant for VR. It's just that there's these extra things that have to happen for a VR to operate at a good level.
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but what would you say if this PSVR 2 was announced that was going to have the finger tracking and fancy in-head headset sensors? What would you say about that?
I would think such thing would come with the PS5. Since they announced the PS5 coming this year, late year, I would think that the PS5 has enough power to power like a PC. But at the same time, I'm also a little biased towards PC since PC is obviously the better choice. It has better technology. It can run things really well. Now, with that in mind, I hope the PS5 brings the pain, brings all the good stuff, and the PSVR 2, I hope it's not called that. I really hope it's not called that. I really hope that it would profit. It would actually be decent enough for a PC player to go, wow, okay, we actually sort of maybe kind of have competition here.
Yes, and I think if they do that, they will have to increase their price tag a little, because right now the PS4 and PSVR bundle, if you want to get a VR headset, it's insanely cheap. You can jump into VR for... you're not going to break the bank to get a PSVR, which is another great thing about the PSVR. It's a great introductory headset, and if you have a PlayStation 4, I highly recommend getting it as an introductory to VR. So I just think that if the PS5 brings another PSVR headset, which I'm thinking it will at some point, if they do it correctly, I think it could be good, but just because I am PC biased, I don't think it'll ever quite be there. But who knows?
PC might, go a step above. Like they always do.
Moving promptly on to our last question, it comes again from Werewolf over on Discord. He asks, what are your thoughts and experiences on picking up VR for the first time versus your thoughts on VR now. Now, I know quite a while back in my 100 subscriber special, I did talk about this, so I'm going to bring that up once again. My first experience ever of virtual reality myself playing it was while I was very sick in the hospital using the hospital's PlayStation VR. And I heard that the children's department at the time of the hospital had just gotten a PlayStation VR, and I was like, wow, I want to try that. So they had it on this cart, and it connected, and the camera was kind of jimmy-rigged to the top of this cart, and there was a PlayStation sitting with kind of an old TV monitor on it, and I was like, it doesn't look that impressive. So they put the PSVR headset on me, and I think it was playing the VR Worlds demo, where you have a bunch of little mini-games you can play with the standard PlayStation controller, and I was like, yeah, no, this is it. This is what I want to do primarily now for the rest of time. It was the coolest experience. It gave me shivers down my spine just to be able to turn my head and see this massive world. I could look out, and for miles there was the PlayStation Home swirls and things, and it was just immersive and amazing. And I was like, that is so cool. And
wasn't there fireworks too?
I think that, there was fireworks over in the one corner. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. So that was my first experience, and I was like, that is amazing. And now, even when I put my headset on now, and I look out into the distance, and I know the viewers watching and those listening, you can't see it, but there's scenery outside the window over there, and there's trees, and there's clouds, and it just goes on for miles, and that still blows my mind every time I step into VR, that I can look out, and I know that just 8 feet in front of me, there is a brick wall. But I can look out and see for miles. Just miles, and there can be people doing stuff, creating things, having fun out there. And I can walk over to them and talk to them and do all kinds of fun things. And it's just, every time I pick up VR, I'm like, this is cool. And I know in 5 or 10 years, things are only going to get better, and I'm going to put the headset on, and I'm going to be like, wow, and it's just every time I put my headset on, I'm like, wow, it's just a bunch of wow. I'm basically Owen Wilson when I put my VR headset on.
Well, for me, the first time I've ever picked up a VR headset was Christmas Day on 2017. Now, 2017, was, I was pretty young. Okay, I was, dim-witted, small little child. I would say that. And I got my VR. I've been asking it for all year. I've never really seen any gameplay of it other than Beat Saber, and I thought that looked cool. And so I plugged it in, I put everything in, and minutes before I had to leave my house for, going to see family on Christmas Day, I plugged in the demo disc 2, and I saw it was amazing. There was so many things happening, and it was so beautiful. It was really cool. It was really cool. And then when I left, it was strange being back in the real world, and it was real, and I wanted to do it more. I wanted to see what's more. And so more and more as time goes by, I've gone through at least 3 headsets, because PSVR isn't really the best. And right now, this one is on its last leg, but I'm still using it, and it can be usable. And now, whenever I put it on the headset, I'm like, man, I really wish there was an improvement to this. I really wish that I could have something better. And also, there's a side thought saying, I hope this doesn't break. So.
Okay, yeah. I will add one final thing before we wrap this episode up. The winter break, I bought my first Rift, actually with my own money, a couple weeks before Christmas, and I played around with it and really enjoyed using my Rift, but there was winter break, 2016, when I first got into VR for a long stretch of time because school was out for winter break. And I think I spent, 72 hours just in Rec Room, leaving to eat and things like that. And then when I finally took that set off and was done because my parents were a little concerned for my well-being, it was honestly weird because I remember this and I always put myself down like, wow, I can't believe I did that. I walked over to a water bottle in my refrigerator, pointed my hand at it, and closed my hand. And I didn't pick the water bottle up because that's not how water bottles work. So that is the thought I leave you with. Imagine Pooks opening the fridge, sticking his hand out at the water bottle, which is 2 feet in front of him, closing his hand, and then thinking, wow, I just did that. I would like to thank all of you for tuning in to the second episode of the Pooks Cast, and I'd like to extend a huge thank you to my good friend and co-host, Goose.
And I'd like to extend a huge thank you to you for having me.
And remember, if you would like to submit your own questions for us to answer on the next episode of the Pooks Cast, you can now do so in the comments below. If you would like to have a higher chance of your question getting featured, you can head over to my Discord channel, Discord server. You can do that by clicking the link in the description below and posting your questions in the question section of my Discord. And as always, I want to remind you to subscribe, hit that like, do all that fun YouTube stuff as always. I'm Pooks, this is Goose, and we'll see you all in the next episode. Bye!